Namaskar and welcome to IIPA. I am Rakhee Bakshee. Today we have this very special interview with a very special person, somebody who carries with him rich and vast and varied experience in governance and administration. I'm talking about Shri Rajiv Mishra, who headed National Mission for Clean Ganga, NMCG. Ganga, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, is the axis in India of ecology, of economy, of social, cultural, and spiritual ethos of our country. So we're going to talk about Ganga, but many other issues. So first of all, I welcome Mr. Rajiv Mishra on the show. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Sir, talking about Ganga especially, and I think that's where you really had the vast and rich experience, and NMCG. In fact, you operationalized the whole concept of NMCG, and then all the things which center around Ganga. So you talked about an integrated approach as far as urban housing is concerned, water is concerned, irrigation is concerned, disaster is concerned, project management, collaborations, PPP, all kinds of things. So tell us about that as to how you were really handling all this with an approach which is focused around that integration.
You have very rightly said about integration of different sectors. And as you recollected about various fields where I have worked, I am looking back from also Ganga perspective. अगर आप गंगा पे काम करते हैं तो आपको एक व्यापक सोच के साथ काम करना पड़ता है. बट जब मैं गंगा पे काम नहीं भी कर रहा था, जैसे अगर मैं हाउसिंग में था या किसी और मिनिस्ट्री में था, then also one has to develop an integrated thinking. Because whether it's irrigation, whether it is urban development, whether it is housing, whether it is disaster management, I think you have to think of how different sectors join together and how a policy should emerge which will look at not, I mean there will be sectoral policy, we will be making a policy about housing, let us say. But while making that policy of housing, if you construct a house, the house will require some amenities. So how water becomes important, drinking water and disposal of wastewater becomes important. So I think that integrated approach is very important, and then in a way, looking back at my experiences, I feel lucky that I got a chance to look at different sectors, whether it was irrigation, agriculture, whether it is housing, urban development, and finally environment, Ganga rejuvenation, in between training, in between disaster management. Again, disaster management is again a cutting across several areas. If you construct a house, you have to be careful to make it disaster resilient, earthquake proof or any other disaster proof. If you are making irrigation dam, again you have to be conscious about it. So how integrated thinking is embedded into all sectors when you plan or when you implement these projects is very important.
But talking about, and I would like to take up more time on irrigation, for example. We're talking about India. Irrigation is a very important subject related to, of course, water resources. Would you like to elaborate upon the whole system that you looked into? Because when you're talking about this whole Ganga management, irrigation came into the picture in a big way.
Yes. In fact, I had a chance to work in fundamentally in the irrigation department at the state level as principal secretary. Also, when I joined Ganga Mission, I had to look irrigation from different perspective. So when you look at irrigation, it's very important because without irrigation, the lot of farmers, the lot of other people will not be as good. But again, when you look at irrigation, we have to also look at it holistically. Sometimes we look at only surface water, sometimes we look at only groundwater, but ultimately you have to look at irrigation as a whole sector. And what are the problems of irrigation, what happens to the tail end areas, whether they get water or not, the water allocation among different states at a macro level, at a minor level, how you allocate water to different survey numbers, different villages. So I think it's a very fascinating area. I have changed before my own eyes certain projects which were languishing for decades, they getting completed. So a lot of decisions you have to take which can be at times risky. But you implement those projects and then you see the area changing completely once water comes. So this is one side of water, one side of irrigation point of view water. I will also add, you have to also look at micro irrigation. I had some chance to do that so that you can save water, because now presently we have to save as much water as possible. We are very inefficient in using water, so we waste lot of water.
Okay.
So I think that kind of wastage in agriculture, in irrigation, so when an irrigation engineer plans, he has to also look at these things.
So you're basically saying, sir, wastewater management is something that you also started to focus on then.
Yes, yes. So what I am saying that today you see lot of water, so you use more water. Using too much of water is also not very, very useful for the crop. But we have a mindset that if we flood our crops with water, अच्छी फसल आएगी. ऐसा नहीं होता है. So I think scientifically it has been proved. मैंने अपने फील्ड लाइफ में भी देखा है, अगर वाटर को आप सही तरीके से यूज करेंगे, सही क्रॉप के लिए यूज करेंगे, यू कैन स्टिल गेट सेम प्रोडक्टिविटी. सो दैट इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. बट changing the perspective, my perspective also changed when I joined Ganga Mission. Here we started looking river from a different perspective. Ganga Nadi ho ya koi bhi nadi ho, it is not just source of water. Normally in irrigation or the irrigation engineering, you look at river as a source of water and you draw as much of water as possible. Don't allow it to go waste in the sea, so let's use till the last drop. That's one perspective. But I think my perspective also changed. I started understanding water and understanding river in a more detailed way. So the ecology comes. To rejuvenate a river, to keep river healthy, you have to leave some water in the river. The concept of environmental flow later on, which got developed as a scientific branch. But इसको बिल्कुल हम स्वाभाविक तरीके से सोचे. किसी भी चीज़ को जिंदा रहने के लिए कुछ तो चाहिए ना. हमारे शरीर में खून होना चाहिए, ब्लड होना चाहिए. उसी तरह से नदी को भी जीवित रहने के लिए एक मिनिमम क्वांटिटी ऑफ वाटर शुड बी लेफ्ट इन द रिवर. समटाइम्स वी डू अ मिस्टेक ऑफ abstracting more and more and more for different use. So I think that perspective came while working with Ganga Reimagined Mission, that we have to change, we have to leave some water, and river must have a right over its own water. Looks very paradoxical.
जी.
That river को भी अब उसी का तो पानी है, लेकिन उसका राइट क्यों देने की ज़रूरत है. But yes, I realized that is the major issue for river rejuvenation, for Ganga rejuvenation, and we must respect it. We must give some legal right.
And how did you look at states? How did you look at special project management plan also, which is something that is your forte also, which comes with your background? How did you really did all that, all these projects, and then create a focus planning there?
I think it's very important to prepare the right kind of project, because as you rightly said, I had a long face-off with project management, whether it is irrigation project, large, major and medium irrigation projects, or sewerage projects, or wastewater management projects, or housing projects. Or even I had a chance to work in infrastructure, so there we looked at airports, ports, and those kind of mega projects also. Everywhere I think what is very important is to understand how the project is getting formulated. So project preparation is very important. Often the project preparation is faulty, that leads to wrong sanction and wrong implementation. So that is very important. Then you mentioned about states. Now I think coming more specifically to Ganga. Now the basin has 11 states. We deal more often with the main STM states, 5 states. Now, one of the challenge was how you standardize the working among different states, how you respect their guidelines, but also bring some standardization. Because often what happens, every state, and how you cut down delay in procurement. One of the major problem of project is, you can say, the procurement, the tender process. So you have to be transparent. Good governance requires that you need transparent, accountable, but you also have to speed up. Cut down unnecessary delay, cut down several channels, several layers. So I think that is a major experience, and then we send them some standard bid documents, we reviewed. Project monitoring becomes very important, and project implementation. You have to understand the risk in the project, anticipate. I will tell you, I mean, sometimes while working in irrigation, the engineers used to come and say that why this delay. Then they used to say, नहीं सर सब अच्छा चल रहा था, एक बीच में रेलवे लाइन आ गया. तो नहर कैसे क्रॉस करेगी? How the canal will cross? Some railway line came or some highway came. Then I think you ask, I mean, when you formulated a project, the railway line was there since much earlier. So we should have anticipated that we will have to cut across the railway line. So often we lose this focus, and that leads to huge delay. Contractor will say it was not part of my contract, now I have to do some extra work. So I think you have a dispute, you have a litigation, or you have to get NOC from different agency, multiple agency, whether it is this clearance, that clearance. So I think whole lot of things are there in the project management, and I will say fundamentally your understanding of the scope of the project and right scoping is the key.
So one thing which relates to this, of course, in the overall framework of sustainability is ecology. And this doctrine of ecological flow is something that you will be able to explain to us much better. And as to how ecology, water management, all this came together when you looked at Ganga and its management.
It's very important to understand what exactly we mean by rejuvenation. Because what happens, Ganga cleaning word has been there in vogue since decades. First time when Namami Gange was launched, we used the word rejuvenation of Ganga and its tributaries. They are very key words, rejuvenation. So we went beyond cleaning. So several reports and then the IIT consortium report also defined that what exactly is the vision. So there the thing came that you have to improve the water quality, pollution abatement. So that's one part. Second becomes ecology and flow. So river is also ecological entity, so you have to improve flow in the river, जो typically हम बोलते हैं निर्मल धारा अविरल धारा. So ये दोनों के concept आते हैं वहाँ पे, and you have to look at both these concepts. Then you have to also look at biodiversity, because river is also ecological entity, river is also geological entity. It has been formed over lakhs of years. It has its own ecology, it has its own sand structure, sediment. So इन सबको समझना पड़ता है. उसमें सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है जो कि आपको फ्लो को मेंटेन करना है, विच आई सेड दैट मिनिमम फ्लो टू कीप द रिवर मेंटेन इट्स इकोलॉजी, उसको कैसे डिफाइन करेंगे, हाउ टू असेस इज ए न्यू फील्ड. सो वी इनिशिएटेड एंड फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम फॉर गंगा दिस वाज नोटिफाइड. सो फाइनली गवर्नमेंट एग्रीड that this is the minimum flow. Now again, to understand it, the minimum flow will vary over different part of the river. So primarily what we are doing, you are mimicking nature. When our development was not so much, river used to flow in a particular way. There is a history, there is historical data. इस स्ट्रेच में इतना पानी इस सीजन में आता है, देन सीजनल फैक्टर ऑल्सो कम्स. एक और बोलते हैं नदी सूख गई. देखिए समर में तो नदी का एक गुण है कि नदी में पानी कम होगा, कभी ज़्यादा होगा. मानसून में पानी बढ़ेगा, गर्मी के समय में पानी कम होगा, समटाइम्स इन विंटर ऑल्सो पानी कम होगा क्योंकि ग्लेशियर मेल्ट कम हो जाएगा. सो यू हैव टू लुक एट मिनिमम फ्लो और इकोलॉजिकल फ्लो एंड डिफाइन इट एट डिफरेंट स्ट्रेचेज फॉर डिफरेंट सीजन. देन यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग नेचर. सो इसके ऊपर हम लोगों ने काफ़ी काम किया है, एंड आवर इन्वायरमेंटल फ्लो नोटिफिकेशन इज ऑल्सो लाइक दैट. Suppose some structure has come, a barrage has come, or some project has come obstructing the flow, then we should prescribe to them also that you have to release this much of water in this season so that continuity of flow is maintained. So this is an emerging area, and I am happy to say that Ganga Mission took lead. First of its kind notification came, and we are implementing also for last more than 2 years.
So with your rich background of handling and looking at from the management side as well, you looked at PPP very closely, this public-private partnership, yes. And that I think has really been seen as working well. Tell us more about that.
You are right. PPP, we all talk about PPP, and I also got a chance in my different postings to work on that. Primarily, why we need PPP? Because you know the task or the infrastructure development is a huge area. Even to meet, let us say, sustainable development goal, whole world is agreeing and trying to move. You will not be able to do everything with government's own resources. So one factor, one driver is to bring certain additional resources from private sector. They also become part of it. So I will say every P is important. Public sector is important because you have to work for the country, you have to work for the people. Then private sector also becomes important. In fact, I will add another P. The people also are very important. And the key thing is partnership. Often what happens when we deal with the private party, typically in government setup, we say that we are giving them some money and they will deliver some job, and then, but when you come to PPP, you have to have a spirit of partnership. I am elaborating because often in our PPP, we typically with our old baggage in government, we throw all the risk on the private party. Then the private party will not be showing much interest. I had a chance of introducing PPP in affordable housing sector. It was earlier also, but we brought lot of innovation in that. Even normally PPP में क्या होता है, government gives land and private party brings money and they construct a house and then with cross subsidy you sell it, so rich pay more and then poor people get free or almost with very low cost. We brought another doctrine. Even PPP is possible on the private land. Suppose the beneficiary is poor, so and land is not with government, but private people have land and they are billing. We will give that subsidy which is eligible to that particular thing under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So affordable housing in partnership became the largest vertical in that whole program, Housing for All program or Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. Similarly in water sector, wastewater sector, Namami Gange Mission was first to introduce PPP through hybrid annuity mode. So here, primarily our idea was not that we didn't have money. Idea was performance. So because in this what happens, we pay only, he gets only part payment during construction and remaining he gets during maintenance. So long term operation and maintenance आता है. केवल STP बनाना नहीं, उसको चलाए रखने की भी जिम्मेदारी होनी चाहिए. So we brought PPP there to basically change the doctrine from payment for construction to payment for performance.
तो आपने STP की जो बात की सर, उस पे ज़रा आएंगे और खासकर इंडस्ट्रियल इफ्लुएंस और जो पोल्यूशन क्रिएटर्स हैं उस पे भी काफ़ी काम हुआ, उसके बारे में भी हमें बताएं.
देखिए क्या होता है, अगर लेट्स कम बैक टू द पॉल्यूशन अबेटमेंट ऑफ द रिवर निर्मल गंगा, एंड गंगा इज ए बट इट्स बेसिकली फॉर एनी रिवर. सो वी स्टार्टेड लुकिंग एट दिस STPs which were constructed earlier. And one problem was these STPs were not working properly or they were not being utilized. So we brought this long-term O&M there. तो उसके ऊपर काम कर चलने लगा. We also further improved. I will come to industry immediately after I finish off on the STP. So we did a kind of complete planning of all the towns along Ganga to look at what is the condition of STP. Then we brought hybrid annuity, one PPP. Then another level of governance improvement was we looked at city as a whole. चाहे किसी भी ग्रांट में STP बना हो, whether it is Namami Gange fund or JNURM fund or anything, what is the total pollution load from that city to Ganga? What is the capacity and what is the gap? Gap in terms of extra capacity, gap in terms of not working capacity. And then the whole thing was planned as with one city, one operator approach. That's again a very innovative approach. Now let's close city by city and move along Ganga and solve the problem city by city and then put one person in charge of 15 years. So old STP, new STP, Kanpur, Prayagraj, some of these big cities, we brought this approach so that STPs start functioning and someone is responsible for 15 years. Idea is 15 साल में the local bodies and local government will develop enough capacity. We are working for that also to take over after 15 years. But government of India is trying to help for 15 years. 15 साल में अगर नाले बंद हो जाएंगे, it will be very difficult to reopen those nala. People will not allow. So that's one part. Industrial effluent. We all talk about tanneries of Kanpur or paper industry or distilleries. वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा हमने change किया. I mean, you cannot give everything free to industry. So our approach has been primarily to improve enforcement. Because you have to inspect. We brought some third-party inspection, annual inspection by IITs and other institutes. That's one. Second, we also supported industry by giving them some sort of financial help for construction of effluent treatment plants, common effluent treatment plants. And third strategy has been to also improve their technology. Because ask these industries to recycle, reuse, consume less water, give them better technology. So through different international collaboration also we help many of these industries to reduce the quantity of effluent. Okay. So I think the three-pronged strategy, capacity building, infrastructure development and enforcement.
Exactly, accountability.
If they don't listen accountability, then close the industry.
Sure,
That
sir.
should not be our first choice, but if necessary, yes, close it.
So that's one aspect of also going punitive a little bit.
Yes.
But talking about technological intervention, in fact, at this stage, we are talking about technology in governance, the whole digital infrastructure
yes.
that is very much there in front of us. Here also, not only in NMCG, but in all other your experiences, you looked at technology as a great, it's a great leveler, but also its impact on these subjects and these sectors.
Absolutely right. Technology can help us in almost every stage of projects or programs. And we tried to do that in different sectors. When it was irrigation or urban development, yes, I think construction of huge lift irrigation projects, first of its kind projects, required lot of collaboration with IITs, with several international agencies to design them properly. So that helped. Again, I mean, technology can be in construction. Technology can also be very, very useful in monitoring, online monitoring of effluents. All our STPs which we are doing it, there is a kind of system where you can sitting in one place, one monitoring center, you can know how the STP is working, at what capacity, at what level, what is the quality of working. So I think that's possible with technology. Now technology, that kind of technology, what we are doing a kind of mapping all along Ganga through LIDAR. So I think you will get very high resolution mapping of what exactly is the boundary of the river, what are its flood plains, how you can protect that. I think only technology will do. Then technology also gives us a kind of lack of bias. Suppose you are monitoring an industry, sometimes you can avoid personal inspection or physical inspection because there is a lack of transparency sometimes in that. But sitting somewhere through these technology, you can monitor. Suppose you get some report, you can also cross check that report. So I think there is a huge area. Housing, we brought new housing technology. You see now some of the houses, some of the technology can construct house in 30 days, 35 days. So whole lot of technological changes came in the housing technology. I had a chance to look after the technology mission in the housing department also. So we brought them into the into the public procurement process also, putting them in the CPWD's schedule of rates. Because what happens, people are also, I mean, typically administrators will be very scared to use a new technology. So I
Sure,
think
sir.
all these
So in
things
fact,
were there.
you brought 7 IITs on board with your own IIT
Yes,
background and
yes.
all that. But looking at some of the other areas that you also had expertise because of working there in sectors like housing, you talked a lot about urban housing. In PMAY, you talked about affordable housing. Talk about other experiences also in the government that you had, sir.
See, government, some of the experience I told, apart from that, at the general administration, you basically deal with man and material in your all district level things. One experience I will tell, because others
For example, real estate also, RERA.
Yes, yes. So I think looking at governance and legislation, Real Estate Regulation Act was certainly a very, very important experience for me, because we all are aware the importance of real estate sector. After agriculture, construction is the next largest employer. It also has lot of investment opportunity, but there is a lack of transparency. There used to be lack of transparency. There was need to bring a level playing field between developers and house buyers. So I think Real Estate Act was a kind of very, very revolutionary kind of piece of legislation, which I had a good opportunity to work during the passing of the thing, the consultative process. All the stakeholders have different views about it. So looking at all of them, listening, we would have listened to more than 1,000 people in different meetings. And then this piece came, then I had also a chance to develop a kind of model, rule, portal. And today I'm very happy to see thousands and thousands of people are doing it. I mean, earlier people used to resist, but now all developers put RERA approved, registration number. I mean, all advertisement you see, there will be a RERA number, otherwise no one will buy that house.
Okay, so some of these couple of questions after which we'll have to wrap up is one, of course, is this general experience as you're talking about this accountability, public administration, which now requires a whole lot of transparency. Technology you already talked about. How would you really look at the current age public administration approach?
See, certain fundamental things do not change in administration. I think I will, in the current age, perhaps we are much more technology savvy, we are more connected world. So I think getting global knowledge and information and innovation is perhaps easier. It's also challenging because things change very fast. But I will say that the defining moment for us should be to finally do any policy and any program in public interest. Now, I mean, you can always say what exactly is the public, how you define public interest, and often there are issues. So I think you have to look at the last man, how you connect to the last man, whether this particular thing is going to really help him or her or not. And that should be a kind of yardstick. So any policy, any program, we have to look at equity, we have to look at efficiency, like how less resource we use and then deliver it. And then finally the delivery, whether, okay, you thought of last man, but whether this administrative arrangement, whether these programs are actually reaching there. Technology can help us in all these aspects. I mean, you can use technology, you can look at all new management techniques, but in essentially, I think that human approach, at the same time fair play. I think these are some of the things which comes to my mind immediately, that ultimately any sector you can put these basic principles and start working.
We cannot end this conversation without talking about certain writings that you did, especially the new book that you've written on Ganga.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that and how it came about and what it entails?
Yes, I recently co-authored a book titled Ganga Reimagining, Rejuvenating, Reconnecting. While working on Ganga, I was lucky that I got a chance to work on it at the level of Joint Secretary in MOEF and MOWR, and later on again as the Director General of Namami Gange Mission. So I have seen through the change, the transition from a very simple cleaning program to a large basin level work. So me along with my colleague Puskal, we have always been thinking, let us pen it down. Why? लोग पूछते हैं गंगा कब साफ होगी, कुछ हो भी रहा है क्या, मतलब अर्लियर, अब तो फॉर्चुनेटली लोग बोलते हैं कि कुछ हो गया है, कुछ दिख रहा है. तो इस बात का जवाब देना बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है कई बार कि क्या हो रहा है, कैसे हो रहा है, क्या क्या बताएंगे, और गंगा को रिजुवनेट करने के लिए क्या क्या काम करना है. लोग सोचते हैं कि सफाई करना है, हम अपने घर की सफाई भी लगातार करते हैं, एक दिन करके छोड़ नहीं देते हैं, लेकिन गंगा की सफाई में हम सोचते हैं कि सरकार आके साफ़ कर जाएगी और साफ़ रहेगी. ऐसा नहीं होता है. सो वी थॉट दैट परहैप्स जो इनॉर्मिटी ऑफ चैलेंज है इस पूरे प्रोसेस का, उसको लोगों तक लेके जाएं, और इसके लिए एक इंस्टीट्यूशन को कैसे डेवलप हुआ. बिकॉज बिफोर माई ओन आईज आई हैव सीन NMCG with 2-member team developing into a larger organization, still retaining its startup culture. So I think I had a chance to be there for long time. So we thought that this will be a very good lesson for people, to good reference point. So this is in a way our personal account, but more than personal account, it's an account of an institution, NMCG, how it grew, and also challenges.
Would you like to show this?
Yeah.
The book is
so
here.
I think this is the book. And if you see, the cover page of the book is basically talking about eternality of the river, like eternal Ganga. You have all the elements, people are also there, all the, a very classical look. And when we go back, I think here it's a small print, but we say the modern thing, the high-rise buildings are coming on the bank of the river, trees are also there, all those things are there, and you see dolphins and fish also in the river. This should be our vision. As we develop, as we urbanize, as we'll grow, we should grow together. River and city, we have to coexist.
And we should have left disaster also, something that you closely worked on.
Yes, so disaster also is there in this. Then this book also takes you all along Ganga. So I think as we move along, so I think there are some general chapters, but this also takes you to the special challenges and achievements of Uttarakhand, of Kanpur, Prayagraj, Varanasi. Prayagraj, you have Kumbh, which is a kind of ephemeral city. How a temporary city comes, gets managed so well, and then it goes off. And Varanasi is a kind of eternal relationship of a river and a city. काशी और गंगा एक दूसरे के बिना रह ही नहीं सकते हैं, तो हम उस पे जाते हैं. फिर बिहार, झारखंड, इस तरह की चीज़ों में डॉल्फिन की जिक्र आती है. So it has glimpses, as I introduced initially,
of spirituality, of the whole journey of Ganga in so many dimensions.
Yes. कल्चर इसमें आता है, प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट के लेसन्स भी हैं जो हमने बताया, वो सब कुछ आप इसमें चैप्टर्स में देखेंगे. उसके अलावा जो है कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी ऑफ गंगा ऑल्सो इमर्जेस. वी ऑल नो इट. पीपल रिवर कनेक्ट की बात आती है, हम क्या कर सकते हैं? लोग पूछते हैं कि एक एक आदमी क्या कर सकता है? I think everyone can contribute. So we try to say and end with a kind of call to our readers, request to our readers that what exactly you can do. We also talk about sustainability. If Ganga has to remain like this and improve, keep on improving, what should be our policy, how we should do it, and what each one can do. जो नदी के लिए खतरा होता है शहरों से होता है. The maximum pollution comes from them, maximum challenge comes from them. So we thought of creating a integrated planning, a new approach for river cities. तो हमने एक अर्बन रिवर मैनेजमेंट प्लान की बात की, रिवर सेंसिटिव मास्टर प्लान पे काम कर रहे हैं, एंड देन वी ऑल्सो क्रिएट एन इंस्टीट्यूशन दैट इज रिवर सिटी अलायंस, सो दैट द रिवर सिटीज हैव देयर ओन आइडेंटिटी. ऑफन सिटी मैनेजर्स थिंक दैट दे आर नॉट रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर रिवर. रिवर किसकी है, गंगा किसकी है पूछेंगे तो सवाल का आसान जवाब नहीं मिलता है. तो उसलिए ज़रूरी है कि वी क्रिएट दिस अलायंस. The municipal commissioner should own up the river stretch also, urban river stretch. In fact, we are now working on developing another book on managing urban rivers. जी. Planning to practice. उस पर भी हम काम कर रहे हैं to take it forward.
And talking about the global connections, World Bank जैसी संस्थाएं या बाहर के ऐसी संस्थाएं वो भी आई साथ में.
बिल्कुल. I think you will have a very long list of international collaborators. World Bank के प्रोजेक्ट तो हैं ही, World Bank हैं, जाइका हैं, GIZ है जो जर्मन एजेंसी, इंडो जर्मन कोलाबोरेशन इज़ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग, नीदरलैंड्स का सपोर्ट है, इजराइल है, आई थिंक होल यूरोपियन यूनियन और इंडिया के बीच में एक वाटर पार्टनरशिप है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, आई थिंक सेवरल इंस्टीट्यूशंस. और हमने IITs के थ्रू एक सी गंगा सेटअप किया है, उसके थ्रू सेवरल अदर इंटरनेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस ऑल्सो गेट कनेक्टेड. लोगों का कनेक्ट बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ा है. हमने एक लेवल पे इंटरनेशनल है, दूसरे लेवल पे हम गाँव तक जाते हैं. गंगा दूत हों, गंगा मित्र हैं, गंगा प्रहरी हैं, तरह तरह के कम्युनिटी कैडर्स हमने डेवलप किए हैं. और आज मुझे बड़ी सेटिस्फेक्शन होती है जब मैं इस मिशन में नहीं भी हूँ, लेकिन इनके काम को सोशल मीडिया में देखता हूँ. कोई अभी भी जाके अपनी घाट साफ कर रहा है, कुछ पोस्ट कर रहा है, कोई बच्चों के पास जाके पेंटिंग कंपटीशन कर रहे हैं, क्विज होते हैं, ऑनलाइन क्विज भी हमने शुरू किया. तो गंगा पे क्विज होती है तो 100 देशों से लोगों ने भाग लिया लास्ट ईयर. So I think गंगा उत्सव मना रहे हैं. As Honorable PM also had said that we must celebrate our rivers. We used to do it earlier. Why not now?
जी. तो पूरा ये gamut है which you have really looked after, and I think when you're talking to us in this interview, this passion of yours really truly reflects. Yeah. So thank you so much for giving us such time and valuable inputs and the journey of Ganga as such, which you have of course penned down also. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Namaskar.